Hi, it's Dre Griggs with Obsidian Wisdom. Most people worry about money, so we created the Wisdom Metric framework to help people eradicate financial stress, generate a passive income, and build a prosperous retirement strategy. We are fiduciary advisors who combine comprehensive financial advice with retirement planning and generational wealth management. I'd love for you to share your thoughts about our proverb of the day in the comments. The rich rule over the poor, and the borrower is slave to the lender. Today you will learn what the average retiree spends per month. So this data comes from the government site. They set it up by like different age categories, and we're just going to look at what 55 and older makes, and then we'll break it down into each of the categories. So before we even get started on the expenditures, how much you're spending per month, we probably should start with how much you're making, and then you would have at least a small idea of how much someone is spending. So according to the U.S. government, people age 55 and older, they have a pre-tax income of $58,528. And the pre-tax just means money that you would generate, money that you would make before it has been taxed. And the reason that they separate it that way, as you can imagine, we would all have different amounts of taxes based on our income overall, but even based on the states, whether your state has a state tax and just different taxes. So it just makes sense to take the money and try to make it as apples to apples as you can. I mean, naturally, we're still not, taking into consideration like the cost of living in the state that you're in. But at least on average, if you just have that amount, then you can figure out based on how much you generally pay in taxes from there. But you can definitely understand that around $58,000 is what you would make a year, and that would roughly be about $4,900 per month. That's what people make. The highest amount of money that you'll make over 55 is going to be in that range of basically right before you retire. So anywhere between like 55 to 64, when most people would look to retire around 65 years old, then you'll find that that's where you make your largest amount of money, which also makes sense because that's when you probably have your highest value. Maybe you're up on the highest level of the chain in your company, or even if you're maybe a government employee and you have different retirement options where they maybe give you access to some of the money earlier, so maybe you have more years. I also know people that work in different service industries where they take how much money that you make in your like last 2 or 3 years, and then that dictates a portion of how much your pension will be. So there's different reasons that people are going to be motivated by, but oftentimes, even if you just simply are like, okay, well, I'm going to retire, I want to get rid of as much debt as I can. So if you're someone that gets paid hourly, you would have the option to be able to take some of that extra money to work down some of your bills. There's lots of different reasons why it would make sense for someone to have their highest income right before they retire, but in the data just matches that. So your situation would, depend on you and what you have going on. And then the number drops off a noticeable amount. And so when you're at age of 64 to 74, it goes from the average of 58,000 to 52,000. So there's a little bit of a drop in your income that you have. And then the most noticeable drop is what happens once we're 75 and older. So even though you're at $58,000 per year, you drop to 35,500 for 75 and older. And that roughly adds up to about $2,900 or $3,000 that you'd have per month. So it cuts almost 40% down, that you go from 4,900, almost 5,000, to just under $3,000 per month. And there's lots of reasons that your household income can also drop from that. The most common, I would imagine, is maybe one of the spouses has passed. So you went from a two-income household to a one-income household. Or maybe there were certain benefits that you had that were kind of trickling in, and then that amount slowly dropped off. There was different things. Maybe you only had a certain number of your years in the plan that you selected, where instead of you getting a certain amount for your entire life, maybe you just got a certain amount for the first 10 years of retirement. Again, there's going to be multiple reasons. It depends on you, but you'll just want to know that roughly the amount drops significantly, almost in half, when you go from 65 when you first retire to 75 and older when you make it to there. And then the amount has a smaller drop when you go from your working years 55 to 64 generally to the retirement years starting at 65. So now that you have an understanding of how much you roughly would expect to make when you're 55 and older, now we can move into how much you would expect to spend. According to the data, you can expect to spend roughly $49,000 per year if you're 55 years of age or older. Now, that roughly comes to about $4,100 per month. So, on average, if you're 55 or older, you're going to make $4,900 per month, and then you're going to spend $4,100 per month. So you have a little bit of a buffer there. It's not exactly matching completely, but that's basically what you can expect to spend. Now, the expenditures work in the same way as the income. Around 55 to 64 in that group, you're going to spend much more than you would spend in the range of someone who's 75 or older. Someone who is 75 or older, it says on average, will spend about $37,000 a year, which comes just over $3,000 a month. Which, if you remember, if you're 75 or older, you would expect to make just under $3,000 a month. It was like $2,955. So you can see that we're actually, when you're 75 or older, on average, you're going to spend slightly more, but roughly just exactly what you make. That you're going to make $33,000 per month, and you're going to spend roughly $3,000 per month. It is a significant drop from what the average is for someone 55 and older, but it's even more of a drop from just that pre-retirement range. And then it drops a little bit once you retire, and then it drops a lot once you're 75 or older. So you're going to be generating less and you're going to be spending less, which isn't really an issue. Basically, your number one expense, about 33% of your budget would go towards, for anyone who is 55 or older who has one, is, as you would imagine, it's going to be your mortgage. Your mortgage is roughly, I think the data said, it's roughly around like $1,300 per month is what the average person is paying towards their housing expense, whether you're in a mortgage or whether you're renting or whether you move to a community or anything of that nature. You would expect to spend roughly $1,300 per month on your housing. And then from there, you would do the regular things, like maybe if you still drive, or if you have a chauffeur that drives you around, or if you are spending it on food or maybe traveling or whatever you have going on, then the rest of it kind of fits in the rest of the amount. So when it comes to how much you'll spend in retirement, you have to take a lot more things into consideration. This is going to be a high level overview. As far as what you spend, is going to heavily be dictated by your current circumstances, how much you have left in expenses, how much you plan on carrying into retirement, the state that you live in, and the cost of living also will play a role, and the state maybe you're going to move to. A lot of the times we don't consider where we're going in our retirement plan, but it definitely plays a role. They often talk about why people are moving down here with me in Florida when they retire, because of the warmth and the beauty and things like that, but it's also a cost of living thing. If you're moving from a state like New York that has a much higher cost of living, and you move to Florida, well, you get all the benefits of still being in the United States, but you also have the additional benefit of having a different tax structure and a different cost of living structure, where someone may feel making, I don't know, like $60,000 a year in New York maybe is like an entry level salary for someone with a college education, while at the same time you may find that if you move to Florida and you have a number around there, that you're actually going to be doing, much better economically speaking, just based on the cost of living alone. So, I mean, there's lots of things that you want to consider, but when it comes to the average of what you can expect to be spending in retirement, you can expect to spend somewhere between $50,000 to $35,000 a month on average, or a year on average, which is roughly going to be around $4,100 to about $3,000. So anywhere between $3,000 to $4,000 per month is what you can expect to spend in retirement. And the better planning that you do, the more comfort you'll have spending it. There's definitely data out there that talks about people who are uncomfortable spending the money that they've worked so long to generate, not because they don't have the money, but because they're just not 100% sure, how much they should be spending to make sure that they don't run out of money. Are my choices the best choices? Am I putting myself at risk? Is there something I should have considered and didn't consider? All of these are things that people go through, and it becomes a very real issue to pull the trigger on spending the money because you don't have the comfort. Right? We all have become savers to get to that point where you're like, okay, I'm putting money away, I'm investing money, I'm not spending all my money, and then to turn the switch where you're like, okay, you've done all the work, now spend all the money. That really is a hurdle for a lot of people, myself included. But luckily, I'm married, and my wife, she doesn't have that same hurdle, so she's totally going to help us out when it comes to spending, the money in retirement. Now, if you are someone who wants more help understanding your retirement needs, I encourage you to go to obsidianwisdom.com/training. There you'll be able to find my retirement needs that works training. It's free. And there I give you an intro and I give you the entire process of the Wisdometric framework, where you would have the ability to put a plan together, have that comfort, and know exactly what you're going to do from today forward so that you don't have to worry about money anymore, so that you're able to build a passive income and you're able to build a prosperous retirement strategy. Until next time, Wisdomites, remember, wisdom is asking the right questions to allow yourself to get the right answers. Keep asking those questions and you'll keep getting those answers. Continue blessings.